Well, this is probably going to be the most embarrassing story I'll ever tell on this channel. This is, of course, the story of the naked home invasion. I experienced a home invasion, and there was nakedness involved. Let me explain. But first, I'd like to introduce our characters today. This is going to be starring Matthew Ventures. Matthew Ventures' angry ex-girlfriend at the time. I'm not going to use her real name. We're going to call her Annie. And also a home invader. Now, just to set the setting for you guys, we're on Stanford's campus, but it is a dark and stormy night. It is a dark and stormy night at Stanford campus, particularly in the house, my girlfriend's apartment at the time. I was visiting her, and this was Kairos. Kairos is the name of the student dorm. Big dorm, maybe like 100 people live there, but it could easily hold very much more. And as you can imagine, on a dark and stormy night, that means it's party time. There was a ton of young people hanging out in the dorm in Kairos, coming here to party, go hard or go home, drinking shots, and whatever else people do at parties. I'm not a party person, as you can probably tell from these videos. I do not have maybe the most social tendencies. So yes, I wasn't, I didn't really drink in college. A party night for me is like relax, sit down, play a nice walking simulator video game, maybe have a glass of wine. That's not, oh no, Stanford kids, no. They go hard, okay? They go hard. They're drinking shots and stuff and doing the bag slap, all of it, right? It's loud, it's crazy on a dark and stormy night. Okay, cool. We got the setting. Okay, for reference, okay, so this is Larkin Love in the corner there. She's an adult actor, and this is some barf, right? So just for context, basically, I lived in Larkin. Okay, so Larkin is infamous because this is the worst dorm for underage alcohol use on Stanford, right? Basically, this was a freshman dorm that I lived in, and it had the most transports of all time. So a transport is when somebody drinks too much alcohol and they get alcohol poisoning, and the cops come and they say, oh shit, like this person is not okay. We need to transport them to the hospital, get them in an ambulance. That's considered a transport. And my freshman dorm had more transports than any other dorm had ever had in the history of Stanford or has had since. This dorm, Larkin, which whenever we would talk about Larkin, they'd always say Larkin Love, because they like want to spread positivity, because the reality was like people were fucking getting like not in a good situation, right? Constantly going to the hospital. You would hear every single weekend the ambulance sirens coming up to the door because there was constantly somebody going out on a stretcher or whatever, right? And they want to not make a big scene about it, but it's like, dude, it was a lot in the middle of the night. It'd be, little nerd Matthew sitting at his desk doing his computer science homework, and suddenly, meow, what's that? Of course, it's another one, who's going. And so they would always say Larkin Love. Larkin Love is also the name of like this adult actor, and so I always thought that was funny, and so like people would always talk about that. And I took it a step further, though. I put GIFs of the actor Larkin Love in my emails. They, in college they have like a lot of emails, and I would attach to the email thread like a little GIF. So this is like a good example. It would be safe for work, but I'll put like a little GIF like this lady there. It's just like doing, right? It's just crazy, right? And man, people hated that. They hated that so much. They'd be like, man, whoever's putting the gifs of the lady in the chat, please stop. And I'd be like, Larkin Love, man, Larkin Love. They hated that. Yeah. So, anyways, long story. Where was I? Right. So this was a bit of a situation because when I was in Larkin, the funny story actually, there was this one guy in my dorm who lived in the same hall as me. And he was, the worst of them all, right? This guy was drinking a ton, really short guy. So he, probably alcohol, more of it had a bigger impact or less of it had a bigger impact on him constantly, right? This was a situation. I remember one time very distinctly, I was going to get my water. Ooh, this is the wrong GIF. All right, whatever. We'll just go here. I was going to get my water at the water fountain. I go to the water fountain, and it's a pool. And I'm like, what the heck? Is it clogged or something? I look a little bit closer. No. That's not water. Somebody had overflown the water fountain with vomit, right? It was this guy, right? Great guy, don't get me wrong. And this is a crazy story. But later on, when I was living in another place, I won't say, but he was the RA for that place. So people come around, right? But all goes to show you, Stanford, you probably already know this. Stanford has a horrible history with alcohol poisoning, especially with these young people. They have this guy, obviously, a very famous guy. He assaulted this lady. Pretty big problem. But anyways, in the midst of all this, people are drinking, going crazy, party time, woo woo. I'm relaxing, nice, comfortable evening with the girlfriend. Time to go to sleep. Sleepy boy, here I am, going to bed. Okay, I've got so here's a picture of me. I'm sleeping naked. Okay, that's an important part of the story. Now, that's a healthy thing to do. I don't want judgment on that. Ask your doctor. It's okay to do that. However, I did have one thing on in addition to the sheets, which was these noise canceling earbuds. Okay, so I would always have these earbuds with me because I'm telling you, you're trying to go to sleep on a Friday night in a house on the row. Impossible. Okay, so basically you're gonna put in these little earbuds and then boop, you can't hear anything, right? And that's very convenient, but it could also be extremely dangerous, as I would soon find out. And so I'm there sleeping naked, sheet, earbuds, next to me, girlfriend Annie, right, or whatever we're calling her. So she's there, I'm here, boop, 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 go to sleep. Suddenly, not suddenly, I go to bed, and then suddenly, somebody's shaking me. I wake up slowly, right? Eyes open up, beauty sleep, interrupted. What's going on? Earbuds still in. I see my girlfriend, right? The moonlight coming in through the window. I could see her face. And clearly there's some emotion on her. I don't know if she's like sad or scared. It looked like she might have been scared. I would later find out she was extremely livid. She was super pissed off, but I thought she was scared. And I'm like, oh no, what's wrong, babe? So I take out my earbuds. Okay, and I look at her, and I follow kind of what she's looking at, and it's the front door of her apartment. The door is ajar, and now slowly creaking open. Inside the doorway is the silhouette of a figure, a hunched figure, small, not very imposing, I'll admit, kind of like a small woman, or like a little old lady. In the doorway, right? Still creepy as hell. Don't get me wrong. Sorry, somebody's interrupting my video. Still creepy as hell. Right? I'm here looking at this person in the doorway, and the door creaks open. The girlfriend looking at me. I take the earbuds out. What's wrong? And this figure hunches in. Creeps in, right? Like a zombie. And I realized, oh my God, this isn't a demon, right? So I thought clearly it was a demon. I have a lot of dreams about demons. We could talk about that later. But I realized this is not a demon. This is something much worse, right? This is a drunk college kid who has entered our room, basically, probably thinking that it was their own room. And let me tell you, folks, this is extremely easy to do in these college dorms. Every single one of these rooms looks exactly the same from the outside of these hallways. And if you lived in a house like Column Bay, oh my God, that house is like a maze. It's so hard to get around. But this is Kairos. And so here I am looking at this figure walking in, this drunk college. This is a graphic. Obviously, I took this picture the night of. But basically, this person's like creeping over. And now I understand what my girlfriend's saying to me. I could hear, it's like suddenly the sound is reaching me, and she's so livid. She's looking at me, and she's saying to me, Matthew, deal with it, right? And so she's saying, deal with it. Now, we've been dating for a very long time, right? And so the longer you date somebody, the more you understand kind of idiosyncrasies and stuff. And so when she says, Matthew, deal with it, right? She meant, Matthew, you little bitch, get up and kick that person out of our room, God damn it, right? So she was not happy. Now, here's the problem, though. I was completely naked, okay? Yeah, Annie not happy, super livid, right? She's pissed. And okay, so I'm naked, though, in the bed beside her. So here's just a little diagram of the room I drew out for you. Over here in the left, top left here, this is the doorway. This is this creepy figure, this drunk person, entering our room. They just broke in. Now, I know you're going to ask, Matthew, why was the door unlocked? Okay, now, I would have never done this, but Annie liked to keep the door unlocked. This was kind of like her thing. And that's actually pretty common for these college students to do that, especially in this dorm. However, I never did that, for the record. I would always lock my door, right? I gotten locked out of my own room a few times. Look, that happens to everybody. But I was always afraid of this happening, right? But this was her policy, and I was like, okay, nothing's going to happen. And then suddenly, this is what happens. So I'm just telling you, folks, if you're living in a dorm, you should lock your door. So anyways, here this lady's coming in, Annie, on the bed next to me, fuming. Me over here, right? And so Annie's an artist, right? So she has a lot of art projects, and she was doing this big art project, which was kind of taking up the middle of the room here. And so that was a bit of a further issue, because this zombie creature was kind of like walking over the art project and like kind of like stumbling over this large creation that she had made. So that only further complicated the issue. And that wasn't it, right? So as a man in this situation, now I don't think Annie really could empathize with this problem here, but the problem was I was naked, right? So I could sense an additional presence in the room, and that was the lawyers. Now, as you may know, the Stanford student community is notoriously litigious, right? So if there is there was people in that room, you could sense them, right? The air was poignant, right? For these people to come and sue me to hell for whatever I was about to do to this poor lady, right? Try to kicking this kid out. And that is one of the main concerns which I was having, because I'm like, I can't go kick this person out. I'm naked. I'm going to get in a goddamn lawsuit, as I alluded earlier, of a big problem, right? So here's the thing. We need to take an intermission here. We need to take a brief intermission to talk about house norms, because nudity at Stanford is actually a very complicated issue. So as you may know, Stanford University Stanford is a school, yes, but it's also a city. Okay, it's a huge school in terms of land size, right? And so it's actually a city, in the county of Santa Clara. And so what that means is that Stanford essentially has its own police force, and to some degree they can kind of make their own rules, right? So that's why, in a lot of college campuses, like the RA is like going to get you in trouble if you drink alcohol. Where like at Stanford, it's an open door policy, which means if you're going to drink alcohol, you have to do it with an open door so the RA can see you and check in on you. And as was the case in my dorm, right? You call the ambulance when you inevitably pass out and have to go to the hospital or something, right? I mean, it was a real problem for some of these people. But the situation was there were these house norms which would kind of set the rules for whatever house you were in, right? And so these norms would deal with a whole bunch of things. God damn it, I don't know why that GIF keeps coming up. The toga party will come up later. Ignore the middle GIF. But all of these GIFs are broken. I'm so sorry. But here's the thing. All right, I'm just going to relieve it. So basically, the rules would be primarily food, sound, and alcohol, and certainly nudity, right? These were all things that would come up in the rules. So, for example, I lived in this vegetarian household where you were allowed to eat meat. Okay, now not every vegetarian household will let you eat meat, but this household I was living in Terra at the time, you're allowed to eat meat, but here's the thing, you have to eat it in secrecy. So if you want to eat meat, that's okay, but you can't use the forks that everybody else uses. You have to use forks that you're going to throw out or recycle afterwards, and you can't eat in a public place, because if somebody sees you eating a chicken nugget or something, they could get triggered. And so you don't want them to get triggered, so basically you have to eat in your own room or something, as long as nobody else is in the room who could also have a situation because of you eating meat. So, there's a lot of little rules like this that you got to be aware of. And nudity was certainly one of those situations where there's a few dorms on campus where it is clothing optional. So you might go into the house and see some naked people, right? And so, you got to give your parents a heads up if they're coming to visit you. But here's the thing. It depends not only on that, but also on the room. So, for example, pretty much I did go to some clothing optional dorms, and it was always the case that if you went to a kitchen, in the kitchen area, you have to wear shoes and you have to wear bottoms, whatever that means for you. But there's also the case of how do you react with that, right? Because some of the house norms are if you see a naked person, you're not allowed to say anything to them because you can't acknowledge that their nakedness, right? Which obviously is a situation, right? Because if you're in one room if you're in a dorm where nakedness is not okay, then, it's like, oh my God, there's a naked person here. What the hell, right? This is clearly a problem. I need to report this or something, right? Whereas if you're in the other situation where the nakedness is okay, then you have to say, oh, body positivity, I have no comment on that. This is awesome, freedom of speech and everything, right? So you have to really know the difference between the two. And that can be very difficult to navigate when you don't know the house norms if you're just a visitor, right? Which is only compounded by the further issue that every 3 months, the dorms will change their house norms, and they're written on like this butcher paper and then shoved behind some sofa, who knows where, right? And so if you're just a visitor, you're not going to know what the hell to do, right? And that's a situation I was in. I'm like trying to like do the math in my head, like, oh man, Kairos, probably not this, but maybe that, and I'm gonna get sued. And so I am extremely worried right now, right? So here's my plan. Toga party. That was my plan. Toga party. What I'm gonna do is take the bed sheets and wear them as a toga, and then I can like kind of Casper the Ghost over there and push this lady out of the room, right? So that's the plan I was trying to do. But here's the problem. I was in the bed and I'm like trying to like pull up the sheets, right? To like, get my situation going. However, my girlfriend at the time, right? She sees that and she's thinking, this, kid is trying to hide under the covers because he's scared, right? And I'll admit, I get very scared in situations like this. I'm very easy to be frightened. But I wasn't trying to hide under the covers. I was trying to, do the toga party thing. So she is livid, right? That I'm like trying to like hide away from the situation, right? And I was a little bit frightened, I'll admit, but I wasn't trying to hide. I was trying to, protect her or do whatever she wanted, right? But this is the problem. She's super pissed off, right? She looks at me and she says, right? And I know what, we've been dating for 2 years, right? So I know what that means, right? That means, you little bitch, I'm going to deal with this shit and then I'm going to spank your ass, right? So she gets up, tiptoes around her art project or whatever, kicks this lady out of our room, slams the door shut, locks it, and that was the end of our relationship. No. We stayed together. But that was, yeah. So that was the situation. She comes back. She's extremely pissed off. She did not let me live that down. And that was the story of the naked home invasion. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. And as far as I know, that woman was able to make a recovery. As far as I know. So, yeah, that's the story of what happened. Again, a little embarrassing, I'll admit. I would have liked to have dealt with the situation. Maybe the warning is sleep with clothes on. I'm not sure. Or lock your door. That's the warning. Lock your door. I think I should have just told her we should have done that earlier, but sometimes you got to live and learn. So anyways, that's the end of this story. The next story I'm going to tell you guys next time is the story of how on my last day of working at this game company called Sony Santa Monica, I got called into the office. Very serious meeting. My boss is there, and my boss's boss. They sit me down, and they say, Matthew Ventures, we understand that you've stolen copyrighted material from the game. And basically, there's this, they give you this book, this art book that has like proprietary information in it. And they had my book on the table, right? And very clearly there were pages missing, right, that had been ripped out. And how I dealt with that situation, and I was innocent, kind of. I will tell you all about that in the next one. So if you enjoyed this video, like, comment. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. I understand there's a lot of complexity around this issue. It's a complicated story, but I felt like it needed to be told. And I'll see you in the next one.